There is a moment, often when silence feels too heavy and time seems to breathe against your skin, that you realize something has been calling you not from outside, but from a place within you that you have long abandoned. You may have thought you buried it well. Under layers of maturity, responsibilities, and the hardened mask that the world demanded you wear. Yet this voice, this faint cry, refuses to be silenced. It belongs to the child you left behind, the child you once were, and perhaps still are in some hidden, forgotten chamber of your soul. I tell you now, this child is not a relic of the past, not a mere memory. It is an archetype of your inner life, and it carries the seed of your wholeness. To ignore its cries is to reject your own becoming. You see, what you call adulthood is often nothing more than a carefully constructed persona, an armor made to survive the expectations of others. It is necessary, of course, to wear certain masks. Without them, society itself would collapse. Yet the tragedy begins when you mistake the mask for your true face, when you believe that who you are is only the sum of your roles and performances. The child within you is not concerned with these masks. It remembers the rawness of life, the unfiltered hunger to feel, to imagine, to explore. When the child was wounded, and all children are wounded in ways both subtle and profound, it buried those unspoken feelings deep within your psyche. But nothing buried in the psyche is truly dead. What is repressed lives on in shadow, growing darker, more twisted, until you dare to meet it face to face. You may notice it in your sudden anger at trivial things, in the inexplicable sadness that floods you without cause, in the emptiness that no success or love seems to fill. These are not random moods, they are the signals of the forgotten child demanding your attention. Jungian psychology teaches that what is unconscious will manifest in your life as fate. That means the unresolved pains of your inner child do not simply fade away with age. They shape the patterns of your relationships, your fears, your desire, until you become a puppet to what you refuse to acknowledge. The cry of the inner child is not merely sentimental, it is the voice of your own shadow, the part of you that holds both your deepest wounds and your deepest potential. I remember patients who would come to me, rigid in their self-control, speaking as though they were machines programmed to achieve. They had forgotten how to feel, how to dream, beneath their polished exteriors. I could sense the terror of a neglected child, one who had learned early that being authentic meant being rejected. One man, for instance, lived his entire life, pleasing others, excelling in his career, and building the image of a perfect man. Yet in his dreams, a small, ragged boy would appear crying in the corner of a dark room. He would wake from these dreams with a feeling of suffocation. The boy was not a random image. It was the voice of his soul, crying for the freedom to be real, to be seen without the crushing weight of perfection. This is what I mean when I speak of individuation, the great journey of becoming whole. To individuate is not to become flawless. It is to unite the fragments of your being, to bring the hidden parts into the light of consciousness. The child you buried is not just a source of pain, it is also the carrier of your creativity, your spontaneity, your capacity to love without condition. To heal is not to erase what happened, but to embrace that child and say, you are safe with me now. I will not abandon you again. But how does one do this? It is not an intellectual exercise. You cannot simply decide, I will be whole, and expect the unconscious to obey. The unconscious speaks in symbols, in dreams, in sudden impulses and synchronicities. You must learn to listen with the ears of the soul, to enter the dreamlike language of your psyche. Perhaps you will notice recurring images, a house with locked rooms, a forest you dare not enter, a child who runs away when you approach. These are not meaningless. They are invitations to dialogue with what has been forgotten. When you turn toward these images without judgment or fear, you begin to unearth the treasures buried beneath your wounds. Think of a dream I once analyzed with a woman who was paralyzed by a sense of worthlessness. In her dream, she stood before a vast frozen lake. Under the ice, she could see a small girl pressing her hands upward, as if begging to be freed. The dream terrified her. She said, I don't want to look at her. I don't want to feel what she feels. But that was the very problem. She had spent her entire life running from that frozen child. The dream was urging her to break the ice, to feel the soul she had buried when she was young and helpless. When she finally allowed herself to weep for that child, to hold her in imagination and speak words of love, something shifted. She said it felt as though a locked door had opened inside her, and for the first time she could breathe. You too have a frozen lake within you, some place where your tears have turned to ice because no one was there to witness them. Perhaps you were told to be strong, to grow up, to stop crying, and you did. But strength is not the absence of feeling. True strength is the courage to face what hurts, to acknowledge the parts of you that have been silenced. When you deny that child, you also deny your soul's hunger for life. You become a ghost of yourself, living by routines, chasing empty victories, wondering why joy feels so far away. The way back is not through perfection, but through compassion, especially for the small, fragile being inside you that still trembles in the dark. I often speak of the shadow, but many misunderstand this concept. They think of the shadow as merely the dark and sinister part of the psyche. Yet the shadow is not evil. It is the sum of all that we have rejected or denied. This includes our innocence, our vulnerability, our longing to play and be loved without condition. The inner child often lives in this shadow because at some point the world told us that our true feelings were unacceptable. You may remember moments when you felt shamed for crying or punished for expressing anger, or ignored when you needed comfort. Each of these moments becomes a stone, forming a wall between your adult self and your wounded child. The work of individuation is to take down this wall, brick by brick, with tenderness and patience. You may ask why it matters now. After so many years, perhaps you say, that was the past, I have moved on. But if you have truly moved on, Why does that cry still echo in your heart when you are alone? Why do certain people or situations trigger an unexplainable rage or despair in you? Why do you find yourself repeating patterns of self-betrayal, choosing those who wound you, neglecting your own needs? These are the fingerprints of the unhealed child. Until you face it, you will continue to reenact the same wounds. Like a play, you cannot stop performing. There is a sacred moment, I believe, when you stop running and dare to kneel before that inner child. It is not an act of weakness, it is an act of profound courage. You take the hand of that trembling self and say, I see you, I hear you, I will not turn away anymore. And as you do this, you begin to reclaim the vitality that has been lost. You feel again not just the pain, but the wonder of being alive. This is not a simple process. It is often messy, filled with tears and old memories you thought you had forgotten. But it is the only way to step out of the endless cycle of pain that the unconscious creates when it is ignored. Let me tell you something that may surprise you. The child you buried is also the key to your future. Why? Because the future is not built on denial. It is built on integration. When you retrieve that child, you retrieve the raw material of your soul, the creativity that once flowed freely, the courage to imagine new possibilities, the capacity to love without walls. Many of you wonder why life feels empty despite achieving all the goals you thought would bring happiness. It is because you left behind the very part of you that knows how to taste the sweetness of existence. The child's joy, curiosity, and authenticity are not childish. They are the essence of your humanity. As I speak these words, I invite you to close your eyes for a moment and listen inward. What do you hear? Is there a whisper, a memory, a sensation of longing? Do not push it away. Welcome it. Even if it feels uncomfortable, this is the beginning of healing. To witness what has been ignored, to let it have a voice. You might begin by remembering a time when you felt safe, when the world seemed full of magic. Or perhaps you remember a moment of pain when no one came to hold you. Both are parts of the same story. Both are the threads that weave your soul's tapestry. To deny one is to unravel the other. You might believe that the past is dead. That time has sealed your wounds and covered them with layers of scar tissue. But the psyche does not work according to the clock of the outer world. The psyche is timeless. The child within you still exists, as alive and present as the day you first locked it away. It lives in your dreams, in your sudden waves of emotion, in the moments you cannot explain why you feel small, fragile, or unworthy. It hides in the shadows of your relationships, especially when someone's tone, a fleeting look, or a casual remark cuts through you like a blade. It is not the present that wounds you then, it is the echo of a much older cry, one that was never heard. In my work, I have seen that when the inner child is neglected, it will manifest as neurosis, as patterns of self-sabotage, as a deep sense of alienation. You may chase success, power, or love to fill the void, but the void is not outside, it is inside. You are searching for yourself, for the child who once held the flame of your true being. When you bury that child, you bury not only your pain, but also your light. You bury your instinctive wisdom, your ability to trust the guidance of your own soul. This is why people so often feel lost, as if their lives have no center. The center is there, but it is guarded by the wounded child, who fears to come out into the open. Imagine for a moment standing in front of a mirror, but instead of your adult reflection, you see the child you used to be staring back at you. Look into their eyes. What do you see? Is it joy? Is it fear? Is it a silent plea for love? This exercise is not sentimental. It is a confrontation with the living truth of your being. That child is not gone. It waits for you to acknowledge it, to listen. You may resist, thinking, I cannot go back there. It hurts too much. But the truth is, you are already carrying that hurt. It shapes everything you do. The only way forward is to walk back into that room where you left your younger self behind, to hold the hand and say, I will take you with me now. The journey of individuation, which I have spent my life exploring, requires that you integrate not only the shadow but also the lost child. They are, in fact, connected. The shadow is the container where you have thrown everything that felt unsafe to show your tears, your rage, your longing to be free. And among those cast of fragments, the inner child waits, trembling but alive. To retrieve this child is to step into your own wholeness. Without it, you are a mask walking through life, hollow and unrooted. Dreams are often the key that opens this locked door. I recall a man who dreamt of a playground buried under snow. He stood at its edge, watching children play in the distance, but he could not join them. The dream, at first, made no sense to him. He said, I have no desire to play. I am a serious man. But as we explored the dream, he realized that the playground represented a part of him that had been buried by years of duty and self-denial. He had forgotten how to laugh, how to create for the sheer joy of it. His inner child was frozen, like the playground under snow. It was not until he allowed himself to remember moments of childhood joy, to weep for the innocence lost, that the snow began to melt not just in his dreams but in his waking life. His laughter returned softly, at first like a stream thawing in spring. You see, the child is the carrier of Eros, the life force, the energy of connection, creation, and love. When you lose touch with that child, life becomes mechanical, a series of tasks without meaning. You might achieve much, but it feels empty, like eating food without taste. To recover the child is to awaken the senses again, to feel the textures of life, to let beauty touch you without fear. Many people are afraid of this because it means opening the heart. And when the heart opens, the old wounds surface, but healing cannot happen without that opening. You cannot numb the pain without also numbing the joy. Ask yourself, when did you first learn to hide your feelings? When did you start believing that your tears Your laughter, your wonder were unacceptable. This is often the moment when the child was buried. Perhaps it was a parent's harsh word, a teacher's ridicule, a moment of abandonment that left you feeling unworthy. These moments, though small in the eyes of the world, are monumental in the life of a child. They become the foundation of your inner beliefs, the silent scripts that say, I am not enough, or if I show who I am, I will be rejected. These scripts run in the background of your life, shaping every choice you make, every relationship you enter. To rewrite them, you must return to their source. In active imagination, a method I developed for engaging with the unconscious, you can meet this inner child directly. Close your eyes and imagine walking into a landscape that feels familiar yet mysterious. Perhaps it is a forest, a meadow, or a room from your childhood home. Somewhere in this landscape, the child waits. When you see them, do not rush. Approach slowly, with gentleness. Speak to them as you would to someone who has been hurt and forgotten. Ask them what they need, what they fear, what they long for. Listen. This is not a game, it is a sacred encounter. Often the child will show you images or emotions that you have long suppressed. Embrace them. This is the beginning of integration. Integration does not mean you become the child again. It means you bring the child's truth into your adult life. You learn to care for that part of you, to protect it, to honor its needs. This changes everything. You no longer seek validation from the outside because you have given yourself the love you were missing. You no longer fear rejection because you have accepted the rejected parts of yourself. You become whole, and in that wholeness, there is a quiet power that no one can take away. Do you know why so many people fear intimacy? Why relationships so often turn into battles of control and withdrawal? It is because the inner child, still wounded and unrecognized, runs the show from the shadows. When your partner's words remind you of an old wound, you do not respond as an adult, you react as the hurt child. You lash out or withdraw, thinking you are protecting yourself, but in truth, you are repeating the same wound. Only by tending to that child within you can you break these cycles. When you hold that child with love, you no longer demand that your partner fill the void. You approach relationships not as a starving soul, but as a whole, being capable of giving and receiving freely. The child you buried is also the dreamer within you. It is the one who believed in impossible things, who could imagine worlds unseen. Many adults lose this capacity, dismissing it as childish. Yet imagination is the bridge to the unconscious. It is through imagination that the soul speaks. When you reconnect with a child, your dreams become vivid again. Your creativity blossoms. You see life not just as a series of tasks, but as a living mystery. This is not fantasy. It is the very essence of being human. Without the dreamer, life becomes flat, soulless. With a dreamer, even the smallest moments can shimmer with meaning. Consider the archetype of the divine child, a symbol that appears in myths and religions across the world. This child represents not only innocence, but also the potential for renewal, for transformation in Christianity, it is the Christ child. In other traditions, it is the golden child, the savior, the one who brings new light into the world. Psychologically, this archetype lives in you. When you nurture your inner child, you awaken this divine spark. You become capable of rebirth, not by denying the past, but by redeeming it through love and consciousness. You might wonder, how can I love the parts of me that are broken, ashamed, afraid? The answer is simple, but not easy. You must see that these parts are not enemies. They are fragments of your soul that need your presence. When you treat them with compassion, they begin to transform. The child who once cowered in fear can become the source of your courage. The one who wept in loneliness can teach you the depth of your capacity to connect. This is alchemy, the turning of lead into gold, not in a literal sense, but in the transformation of suffering into wisdom. There is a moment in every true inner journey when you stop asking life to change and start listening to what life is trying to tell you. The inner child, with its cries and whispers, is not there to torment you, but to guide you back to the truth of your own heart. It is as though this child holds the original map of your soul, where your dreams were born, where your authentic self first looked out upon the world with awe and trust. When that child was ignored, ashamed, or hurt, you may have abandoned that map, thinking that survival required forgetting who you were. But now, as you stand here, weary of repeating the same hollow patterns, you are being called to pick up that map again, to remember. Many people fear that to meet their inner child is to regress, to become weak or helpless. Yet, this is a misunderstanding. To face the child is not to become small. It is to reclaim the strength that only comes from wholeness. Wholeness does not mean perfection. It means you no longer exile parts of yourself. You no longer look at your tears and say, this is weakness. Or look at your joy and say, this is foolish. You begin to hold all of it, the laughter, the rage, the tenderness as sacred. When you do this, a profound shift occurs. You no longer need the world to approve of you, because you have finally approved of yourself. I once spoke with a woman whose life looked perfect on the outside. She had a successful career, a family, a carefully curated image of strength, but inside she felt empty, as if she were living someone else's life. She came to me not because she understood what was wrong, but because she was haunted by dreams. In one recurring dream, she found herself in an abandoned house. As she walked through its decaying rooms, she would hear the faint sound of a child crying. Each time, she would wake before finding the source of the cry. The dream troubled her deeply. She said, "Why can I not find this child? Who is she?" And I told her, "She is you." The dream was not random. It was an invitation from her unconscious, urging her to descend into the forgotten parts of herself. As we worked together, she began to recall memories. She had buried moments of loneliness as a child, times when she was told to be silent, to be perfect, to never show anger or need. The dream house was her psyche. And the crying child was the voice of all those disowned feelings. When she finally allowed herself in waking life to imagine walking into that dream house, to find a child, to hold her and say, I am here now, I will listen. Something remarkable happened. The dreams changed. The house became filled with light. The child stopped crying. And the woman said she felt for the first time as though she were living from the inside out, not just performing for the world. This is the power of turning toward what you fear. The child you buried is not a curse. It is a gift waiting for your acknowledgement. When you listen to its cries, you unlock a reservoir of energy that has been trapped for years. The energy you once used to suppress your feelings, to wear masks, to keep the pain at bay, this energy is freed and it returns to you as vitality, as creativity, as the courage to live authentically. But you must be willing to enter the darkness. Jung once said, there is no coming to consciousness without pain. To meet the inner child is to walk through the corridors of your own shadow, to feel what you once could not bear to feel. It is to grieve the moments when you were unseen, to mourn the innocence that was lost, yet grief, when welcomed, does not destroy it, cleanses. It softens the heart. It washes away the numbness, and in its place, something new emerges. You find that the child's tears are also the source of your compassion, your ability to connect with others on a deep human level. Without this, all relationships remain shallow, built on the exchange of masks rather than the meeting of souls. In myths, the hero often must descend into an underworld, a dark place where forgotten spirits dwell. This underworld is a metaphor for the unconscious. The child you buried is one of those spirits, like the heroes of old. You must have the courage to enter this underworld, not with weapons but with open hands. You must say to this child, I am here to take you home. Only then can you return to the surface, carrying the treasure of your own self. I encourage you to reflect on your own dreams. What images keep appearing? Do you see yourself in a house, a school, a place from your childhood? Do you meet a younger version of yourself, or perhaps an animal, a symbol of vulnerability or innocence? These are clues, messages from your unconscious. Do not dismiss them. Write them down. Sit with them. Ask, what is this trying to show me? The answers will not come from logic alone. They will come from feeling, from intuition, from the quiet voice within that is older and wiser than your rational mind. When you begin this work, you may feel resistance. Part of you will say, I don't want to go there. I don't want to remember. But remember this, what you resist controls you. What you face, you integrate. The child's cries will not stop simply because you turn away. They will echo in your choices, in your fears, in your unspoken longing. It is better to face them now, to hold the child, than to live a lifetime haunted by what could have been healed. The integration of the inner child is not a one-time act. It is a relationship one that requires ongoing care. Just as you would nurture a living child, you must regularly check in with this part of yourself. Ask, what do you need today? What are you feeling? This practice is not indulgent, it is necessary. When you ignore your inner needs, you project them onto others, demanding that they fill the emptiness. But when you care for your own child, within you bring wholeness to your relationships, because you are no longer asking others to do what only you can do. Let me offer you an image. Imagine walking through a dark forest at night, guided only by the sound of a child's cry. At first, you are afraid. The trees loom like shadows of your past. The path is unclear, but as you follow the cry, you begin to see a faint light, a small lantern held by the child. When you reach them, you realize that the lantern is your own heart, still burning despite all the years of neglect. You take the child's hand, and together you walk out of the forest. This is what it means to integrate the inner child. You recover the light that was always yours, the light that can guide you home. The archetypes that govern the psyche are not abstract concepts. They live and breathe in you. The child archetype, in particular, holds both the wound and the cure. It is the part of you that remembers how to wonder, how to trust the mystery of life. When you reconnect with this archetype, you find that your life takes on a new depth. Colors seem brighter, sounds more alive, moments more meaningful. You begin to see the world not as a battlefield where you must always defend yourself, but as a canvas where your soul can express its truth. When you begin to walk this path of remembering, you will notice that the inner landscape of your life changes. The very things that once triggered you, moments of rejection, the sense of being overlooked, begin to soften. Why? Because you no longer abandon yourself in the way you once did. The child within you, who once cried out for recognition and comfort, now has a place to belong. It belongs with you. This is not merely healing the past. It is reshaping the present. It allows you to meet life not as a wounded fragment, but as a whole being. I remember a young man who came to me and said, I don't feel anything anymore. It's like my life is muted, like I'm just going through the motions. When we began to explore his inner world, it became clear that the reason he felt so numb was because he had built walls too high. Walls designed to keep the pain of his childhood out. But the same walls that keep out pain also keep out joy. He began to dream of a boy locked inside a small room, staring out of a window with desperate eyes. Each time he woke, the image stayed with him like a haunting memory. We began to work with that image. I asked him to speak to the boy, to imagine opening the door. At first, he resisted. I don't want to feel what he feels. He said, but the day he finally walked into that room in his mind, knelt down and held the boy, something broke open in him. He wept, not just for the boy, but for all the years he had denied himself the right to feel. And then, slowly, life began to return. He found himself laughing again, feeling joy even in the smallest moments, watching rainfall, feeling the warmth of the sun on his skin. He told me, It's like I can breathe for the first time. This is what happens when you reclaim the child. Your senses awaken, your soul exhales, and the weight of the years begins to lift. You become more alive, not because you have changed who you are, but because you have welcomed home the part of you that was always waiting. You see, the child's voice never truly dies. It becomes quieter, yes, buried under layers of noise and obligations, but it never stops speaking. Sometimes it speaks through your longing for simpler days. Sometimes through the ache you feel when you see children laughing freely, unafraid to be themselves. It may speak through your dreams or through the inexplicable grief that wells up when you pause long enough to feel. These are not random moments, they are invitations. They are the soul's way of saying, come back to where you began. Come back to what is true. The path to the inner child often feels like a spiral rather than a straight line. You will return to old memories, old feelings, perhaps many times. But each time you return, you bring a little more light, a little more understanding. You learn to hold those memories not as a victim but as a witness. You see the child not through the lens of shame or regret, but with compassion. And with each encounter, you gather a piece of your soul, a fragment of your forgotten self, until you feel whole again. There is a deep connection between the inner child and the archetype of the self, the divine center of the psyche. The self is that which is both within and beyond you, the guiding principle that seeks your wholeness. When you listen to the child, you are, in a way, listening to the self. The child cries not only for healing, but also for the unfolding of your true life. It calls you to step beyond the roles and identities that keep you small, to embrace the fullness of who you are. This is why the child is often associated with rebirth. In many myths, the child hero is the one who brings new life to the kingdom, who restores the broken order. In your own psyche, this child has the same role to restore the balance, to bring renewal where there has been stagnation. Do not underestimate the power of imagination in this work. Imagination is not the opposite of reality. It is the language of the soul. When you close your eyes and see that child, when you speak words of love and forgiveness to them, you are not pretending, you are engaging with the deepest layers of your psyche, layers that logic cannot reach. The unconscious understands symbols, images, feelings. When you give the child your attention in this symbolic way, healing begins to flow like a hidden river breaking through stone. There are moments as you go deeper when you may feel overwhelmed by the sheer weight of what the child carries: grief, fear, anger. Do not run from this. Let it move through you. Feel it as fully as you can, but also remind yourself that you are no longer that helpless child. You are the adult now, capable of providing the safety and love that once was missing. This shift in perspective is crucial. You do not go to the child to drown in its pain. You go to offer it a new story, a new ending, where it is finally held and seen. Sometimes healing the inner child requires speaking truths that were never spoken. Perhaps you need to tell that child, what happened to you was not your fault. Or, you deserve to be loved, just as you were. These simple words, when spoken from the heart, can dissolve decades of silent suffering. It is astonishing how much power there is in being witnessed, even if it is by your own adult self. I have found that people who embrace this work often experience a renewed sense of purpose. They are no longer driven by the need to prove themselves, to earn love, to hide their true feelings. They begin to live from a place of authenticity. And from that place, life opens in unexpected ways. Opportunities arise, relationships deepen, creativity flourishes. This is not magic. It is the natural result of aligning with the truth of who you are. When the inner child is cared for, your energy is no longer wasted on repression and defense. It flows freely, like a river that has been unblocked. But you must also be patient. Healing is not a quick process. Just as a neglected child needs time to trust again, so does your inner self. Do not rush it. Do not demand immediate results. Simply show up again and again with gentleness. Over time, you will notice the changes, a softness in your heart, a deeper connection to your intuition, a sense of being more at home in your own skin. I often think of life as a dialogue between the child and the elder within us. The child brings innocence, curiosity, the capacity for wonder. The elder brings wisdom, stability, and the ability to hold life's paradoxes. When the child and the elder work together, you become whole. You are able to face the world with both openness and strength. But when the child is buried, the elder becomes rigid, lifeless, like a tree cut off from its roots. Reconnecting with the child is like watering those roots. It allows the elder to flourish as well, to offer guidance without losing touch with the heart. Imagine for a moment standing before that child once again. Look into their eyes and notice what they are asking for. Perhaps it is love. Perhaps it is permission to play, to be free. Perhaps it is simply the assurance that they are not alone. Whatever it is, give it freely. Do not hold back. This act of giving is not just for the child, it is for you. It is the moment when you reclaim the part of your soul that was left behind, the part that makes you fully alive. There comes a moment when you realize that the inner child is not just a wounded fragment of your history, but also a living bridge to the deepest truths of your psyche. This child, though buried, has never ceased to reach out to you, often in ways you misinterpret as weakness, as insecurity, as fear. But these are not flaws. They are signals, luminous threads guiding you back to the well of your own soul. And when you finally gather the courage to sit with this child, to listen without judgment, you will find that the cry you feared is not only a cry of pain, but also a cry of longing to be seen, to be loved, to be whole. What does it mean to love this inner child? It means that you no longer silence it with harsh words, as so many adults silence the children in their care. It means you become the parent you always needed, the voice that says, I see your pain, and I honor it. I will not turn away. When you speak this way to the child inside you, the walls of repression begin to crumble. You may feel emotions rising that you have long held back, grief, anger, even rage. Let them come. They are not your enemy. They are your liberation. They are the dammed waters of your soul, breaking free to flow once again. One woman I worked with had a recurring dream of holding a broken doll. At first, she dismissed it as meaningless, but when we explored the image together, she realized that the doll was a symbol of herself once cherished, now discarded and forgotten. In the dream, the doll would look at her with eyes that seemed alive, pleading to be cared for. When she finally allowed herself, in waking life, to hold a real doll as a representation of her inner child, something profound shifted. She said, "I feel like I'm holding my own heart for the first time." This simple act of symbolic care was the beginning of a deep transformation. She began to speak to that child each night, saying words of love that no one had ever said to her. Slowly, the shame that had bound her for years began to dissolve. You may find it difficult to believe that such inner dialogues can change you, yet they do, because the psyche is not bound by the rational constraints we often impose upon it. The unconscious responds to symbols, to images, to acts of genuine attention. When you imagine holding that child, you are communicating directly with a part of your soul that has waited, perhaps for decades, to be acknowledged. This is not fantasy, it is the language of healing. As you go deeper, you will begin to see that the inner child is also the guardian of your creativity. All art, all true creation arises from this primal, playful part of you. When you were a child, you could create without fear, drawing, singing, imagining whole worlds from nothing. But somewhere along the way, you may have learned that such freedom was dangerous, that it could be mocked or rejected. And so you buried it along with the rest of your authenticity. To retrieve the child is to retrieve your power to create, to express, to bring into being that which your soul longs to manifest. Without this, life becomes mechanical, sterile. With it, even ordinary days shimmer with the magic of possibility. Have you ever wondered why certain memories stay with you, etched like fire in your mind? It is because the child within you is still living those moments. Perhaps you recall a day when you were left alone, or when someone you loved spoke words that cut deeper than they realized. These memories are not just historical, they are emotional realities that still inhabit you. When you revisit them with the compassion of your adult self, you can rewrite the story, not by erasing what happened, but by adding what was missing: love, safety, acceptance. You can say to that child, "I am here now, I will protect you." In doing so, you offer yourself the healing that once seemed impossible. The work of integrating the inner child is not separate from the larger journey of individuation. To individuate is to gather all the fragments of your soul, your shadow, your forgotten dreams, your suppressed feelings, and bring them into a conscious, living dialogue. The child is one of the most vital of these fragments, for it holds both the wound and the key to your becoming. To leave it buried is to live half a life, no matter how successful or accomplished you may appear. There is a paradox here. The very vulnerability you have tried to hide is the source of your strength. The child, in its raw honesty, teaches you to feel, to connect, to love. Strength without feeling is brittle, like a fortress built of stone but hollow inside. When you allow the child to live again, your strength becomes something deeper, a resilience that is born not from denial but from wholeness. Consider the archetype of the wounded healer. This figure, present in many traditions, is one who heals others, precisely because they have faced and integrated their own wounds. You cannot heal what you have not acknowledged. You cannot guide others toward wholeness if you yourself are still running from your own pain. The child within you is the first patient you must tend to. It is your responsibility to care for that inner being, to bring to it the love and presence that it was once denied. In doing so, if you not only heal yourself, but you become a light for others, a reminder that it is possible to rise from the ashes of old pain. I invite you now to imagine a moment of reunion with your inner child. Picture a place where you once felt safe, a quiet garden, a room filled with sunlight, a space where time slows. Imagine the child walking toward you, eyes wide, with both fear and hope. Kneel down and look into their face. What do you see? What words do they need to hear? Speak them softly. Hold them, even if only in your imagination. Let them know you will never leave again. This is not a one-time gesture. It is a promise, a sacred covenant between your present self and the soul that once carried all your dreams. And what of the future? When you integrate this child, you will find that your path becomes clearer. You will know what truly matters to you, not because someone told you, but because you feel it in your bones. The child is the compass of your authenticity. It points not toward what the world demands, but toward what your soul longs for. When you listen, you will discover that many of the things you chase, approval, success, perfection, were never what you truly wanted. What you wanted was to be whole, to be loved as you are, to live in alignment with your true nature. This is what the child remembers, and this is what it offers you when you bring it back into the light. The journey is never easy. You will encounter resistance, old fears, the temptation to turn away. But each time you return, each time you sit with that child, you will feel a little more of your true self coming alive. You will feel the joy that comes not from external achievements, but from the simple act of being real. And as this authenticity grows, your relationships will change. You will attract those who see you, not your masks. You will no longer tolerate the dynamics that keep you small or hidden. You will stand in your truth, not as an act of defiance, but as an act of love for yourself and for the world.